Why did paradise lead to an apocalypse, become the trigger for total destruction?
Hello guys, welcome to this episode of our podcast. I'm Leo and this is Sophia. Today we're going to walk you through a ghost story, but it's not the kind with, rattling chains or foggy graveyards. This is a ghost story about biology. It's about a box, a very specific scientifically designed box that was built to be a paradise, and instead it became a tomb.
It sounds like the opening of a sci-fi horror film, doesn't it? Like a really dark episode of Black Mirror.
Yeah, it really does.
But this actually happened. We're doing a deep dive into one of the most famous and frankly most terrifying experiments in the history of behavioral science. It's officially known as Universe 25.
Universe 25, just the name itself feels heavy. It has this ominous weight to it. It makes you think there were 24 failed attempts before it.
Well, the ethologist behind it, John B. Calhoun, had actually been running these kinds of experiments for years. This specific one, though, ran from 1968 to 1973, and the goal was, on the surface,
Simple how?
He wanted to create a utopia. He actually called it a mortality-inhibiting environment.
A mortality-inhibiting environment. Let's visualize this place because the setup is key to the whole mystery. Imagine a large tank.
A square about 101 inches on each side with these 54-inch high walls. So impossible for a mouse to climb out.
Right, but inside it wasn't just an empty box. It was like a luxury rodent city.
Exactly. It was designed vertically. There were 256 separate apartments, these little nesting boxes all connected by tunnels. Calhoun designed it to comfortably house almost 4,000 mice.
And the amenities were, they were 5-star. Unlimited food, unlimited water, 0 predators.
No disease either. The founding mice were completely screened and the temperature was kept at a perfect constant 68 degrees Fahrenheit. A true rodent Garden of Eden.
So the logic was, if you remove all the physical stressors that animals face, hunger, danger, cold life should just flourish.
That was the idea. What happens when resources are infinite?
And here's the paradox, the central mystery we're unpacking today. The habitat was built for nearly 4,000 mice, but the population peaked at just 200.
It never even got close to full.
And then it just collapsed. Total extinction. Every single mouse died.
So the question is, why did paradise lead to an apocalypse? Why did this perfect environment become the trigger for total destruction?
Okay, so let's investigate the design of this trap, because that's really what it was. It started with just 4 pairs of mice.
8 founders. Calhoun called this phase A, the strive period. And what's so fascinating is that even in a utopia, equality was a myth from day one.
Right, you'd think with all that space they'd spread out.
But they didn't. The dominant males immediately started fighting over the best apartments.
The real estate market is brutal, even for mice.
Apparently so. They wanted the nests closest to the food. So a social hierarchy was established almost instantly. But at this point, things are working, they're breeding, and we move into phase B.
The exploit period. This is the golden age.
It is. The population is doubling every 55 days. It's an explosion of life. If you were just looking at the charts, you'd think, wow, this is a massive success.
But this is where the glitch in the simulation starts to appear.
Yes. In the wild, nature has a cruel but very necessary function. Death. Most young mice just don't make it.
They get eaten, they freeze, they starve.
Exactly. But in Universe 25, there was 0 infant mortality. Everyone survived.
Which sounds great. That's the goal of modern medicine, isn't it? To stop people from dying young.
On paper, yes, but in a closed system, it was a structural catastrophe. Because no one was dying, the social roles filled up instantly.
What do you mean by social roles?
Well, think about it. A young male mouse grows up, he challenges an older one. Maybe he loses. In the wild, he'd just leave. He'd emigrate and find new territory.
But here there was nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go. And the older generation wasn't dying off to make room. So you had this huge number of young mice with no purpose, no role to fill, and no way out.
So they hit their social carrying capacity long before their physical one.
Precisely. The sheer number of interactions they had to deal with every day just overwhelmed their cognitive limits.
And this is where we enter phase C, the stagnation period. This is where the story shifts from a science documentary to something like existential horror.
The population growth just slams on the brakes. But the behavior, the psychology of the colony, completely snaps. This is where Calhoun coined his famous term, the behavioral sink.
The behavioral sink? It sounds like a drain where everything good just washes away.
And that's pretty much what it is. It's what happens when high population density causes a total breakdown in social norms. It's not just about being crowded. It's when the interactions themselves become pathological.
And the first sign was what he called the dropouts.
Yes. These young males, they reach maturity, they try to find a place in society, a made territory, but everything's already taken by this older, immortal generation.
They're just constantly rejected.
And since they can't leave, they just withdraw. They would gather in these huge, huddled masses in the center of the pen on the floor.
And it wasn't a peaceful protest. The violence was senseless. They weren't fighting for territory anymore.
No, it was just chaotic aggression, biting tails, attacking each other for no reason. It was violence without a purpose, born from this existential frustration.
While that's happening on the floor, what's going on upstairs in the good apartments?
That's collapsing too. The dominant males, the ones who owned the nest, they just burned out. They couldn't handle the constant pressure of defending their territory from so many challengers.
So they just gave up.
They stopped defending their nests, which left the females and the young completely vulnerable.
The protectors went on strike.
They did. And the nursing females, they had to become hyper-aggressive to defend the nest themselves. But that aggression spilled over. They started attacking their own young, kicking them out of the nest too early.
I read that in some areas, infant mortality hit 96%.
96%. In a place with unlimited food and perfect safety, it shows that the biological drive to protect your own offspring was just completely erased by social stress.
It wasn't a resource crisis. It was a social one.
Absolutely. Calhoun even noted this pathological togetherness. Even though other food hoppers were empty, they would all crowd around the same one just because they were conditioned to only eat in a crowd.
Wow. They lost the ability to be independent?
They did. But amidst all this chaos, the violence, the maternal breakdown, a new group emerged. And this for me is the strangest, most unsettling part of the whole study.
Ones.
The beautiful ones. That's what he called them. And they were a specific group of males who stood out because visually they were perfect. No scars, sleek coats, just pristine.
And they were pristine because they weren't fighting. They just opted out of the chaos.
They opted out of everything. Not just fighting, they didn't compete for anything, they didn't mate, they didn't court females, they didn't socialize at all.
So what did they do all day?
They ate, they drank, they slept, and they groomed themselves, obsessively. Calhoun described it as a kind of narcissism. There were just these biological units that had stopped being mice in any meaningful sense.
This is where Calhoun brings in his idea of death squared. Can you unpack that? It's a heavy concept.
It's the core of his whole thesis. He argued that for a social animal, there are two deaths. The second death is the one we all know, physical death. The body stops. But the first death is the death of the spirit, the death of purpose, the death of the will to engage with the world.
The beautiful ones were already dead spiritually. They were just waiting for their bodies to catch up.
That's it, exactly. He called them socially autistic. Their physical bodies were running, but the internal software, the drive to connect, to struggle, to reproduce, had been completely wiped.
And here's the part that really gave me chills. Calhoun tested this. He took these beautiful ones out of that hellscape.
He did. He put them in a fresh, normal environment with healthy, receptive females. A clean start. They did nothing. They still refused to mate. They still refused to interact. They just sat there grooming themselves until they died of old age.
The damage was permanent.
It was irreversible. The capacity for social life was just gone.
That is terrifying because it suggests once that switch is flipped, you can't just flip it back.
And that leads us right to the big, uncomfortable question, doesn't it?
Are we looking in a mirror? Are we, in our modern world, living in some version of Universe 25?
Well, let's look at the parallels. It's hard to ignore. We're seeing phenomena in advanced societies that look eerily similar. Take the Tangping, or lying flat, movement in China. You have a generation facing this intense 996 work culture. They see the struggle, the strive, and realize the rewards just aren't there anymore. The social roles are saturated. It's a concept called involution.
So, like the rejected mice, they just opt out, they lie flat.
It's a passive resistance. And then you look at Japan with
the Reichelitzes.
Men, mostly, who withdraw into the rooms for years, sometimes decades. It's the 80-year-old parents caring for their 50-year-old reclusive children.
It's the beautiful ones, but in a bedroom. Especially when you hear about the herbivore men phenomenon. Men who have just lost all interest in courtship or relationships.
The asexuality is a perfect mirror. But there's a modern twist for us that the mice didn't have. They withdrew to the floor, we withdraw into a digital
simulation.
Right. We have this virtual space where we can simulate achievement, simulate connection. Without any of the real-world risks, you can get the dopamine hit without the social cost.
So our screens become the upper-level apartments where we can groom our digital avatars instead of our fur.
It's a buffer, maybe. But I want to get to the why of it all on a chemical level. Calhoun saw the behavior, but now we have the neuroscience. And it really seems to come down to dopamine.
We think of it as the pleasure molecule,
which is a common misconception. It's not the pleasure molecule, it's the motivation molecule. It's the engine of the hunt. It's what drives you to seek and pursue a reward.
So there's wanting, which is dopamine, and then liking, which is the actual pleasure.
A huge difference. Liking is more about opioids and endocannabinoids. Dopamine is just the gas in the tank to get you there. Now think about Universe 25. Unlimited everything. The apartments are already built.
There's no hunt. There's no strive.
You've deleted it. And when you remove the effort, you short-circuit the entire dopamine system. There's nothing to want because you already have it all.
The paradox of abundance.
Exactly. We know from the sunk cost effect that we value things more when we work for them. If the cost is zero, the value drops to zero. So the brain just stops producing the motivation to do anything.
Which leads to a state of anhedonia.
The inability to feel pleasure. The beautiful ones weren't just lazy. Their brains had very likely adapted to a world without struggle by turning off the motivation to live. Their reward circuits just atrophied.
Their entire biological operating system crashed because it had no tasks to run.
And that is the terrifying lesson of the mortality-inhibiting environment. Life, at its core, is a struggle. You remove the struggle completely, you don't get paradise. You get the first death. We are built for friction.
So to recap this chilling timeline, you start with the strive. Then the population booms in the exploit period. Then this stagnation, the behavioral sink, the violence.
And finally, the death phase, where the only ones left are these socially dead mice who have forgotten how to exist. And the colony just fades to zero.
All because the environment was too perfect. It was a complete failure of success.
It forces you to question our most basic assumption, that comfort is the ultimate goal. We spend our lives trying to make things easier, safer, more abundant.
But maybe there's a threshold. A point where removing all the friction also removes the very thing that makes us, the spark. Which brings us to our final thought. We are, right now, building a world where AI and automation are designed specifically to remove friction from our lives. Instant delivery, instant art, instant answers.
We are, in a very real sense, building our own Universe 25.
So the question I want you to walk away with is this. If we succeed, if we build a digital utopia where we never have to struggle again, are we just engineering our own first death? How do we keep the spirit alive when the hunt is finally over?
Something to think about the next time you're sitting in your climate-controlled room, ordering dinner with a single tap.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Stay curious.
And maybe go take the stairs today. See you next time.